Hello and welcome to Ask the Expert, an award-winning daily series from 8:30 a.m. to 9 a.m. to help small businesses. If you have any questions, please ask them in the comments of the live feed. And if you need any more advice, join the official Intuit QuickBooks SME community groups on Facebook. Accountants and business experts are available 24/7. During the live session, we'll be running a poll, so please do engage with that, and I'll reveal the results at the end. So I am Kim Arnold. I'm a marketing, communication, and branding consultant, and my job is to help small and medium-sized businesses, coaches, and consultants cut through the noise and get their message heard. I'm also author of Email Attraction, Get What You Want Every Time You Hit Send. It's a mighty little business book, and I can show you here. Bright yellow little book that helps you write emails that make people jump into action. And of course, that's what we're going to be talking about today. There's a link in the comments to the book as well, by the way, so you can take a closer look if you're interested. Now, I've got some shocking stats for you about email. Brace yourself, hold on to your chair. You're going to spend around 6 years of your life on email. 6 years, 52,000 hours, give or take. It's a lot, right? It's more than you're going to spend eating, more than you're going to spend socializing, more than you're going to spend going on holiday. It's so much of our time. But here's the thing. 90% of people have never been taught how to write a good email. It's crazy, isn't it, when you think about it? Probably, before the pandemic, you were probably relying on email to do a lot for your business. And now we're all remote working. It's kind of gone through the roof. So we really need to know how to write better emails because we're using them to win business, get meetings in diaries, get invoices paid, motivate our teams, reach out to clients. We rely on email for so much. So let's learn how to do it better. So I've got my top tips for you today. I've got my SAS acronym. It's like the special forces of email. And I'm going to show you how to write emails. You can use this technique with anything, any email to a client, to a colleague, to writing to your kids' teachers at school. You can really use this acronym for anything. So it's really important to have a structure to your emails when you write them, because we tend to jump in very quickly. We start writing and we just shoot off 20 emails in a morning and we think we're doing really well. But actually, we're often not getting the results we want. So we're not getting people to reply. We're not getting people to do what we want. And that can be super frustrating. And we start writing emails that say things like, as per my last email. And I don't know if you saw my last email. So we do need to write emails better if we want to get a better response. So my SAS acronym for you. S stands for start. In the book, I call this your hook of your email, because this is really valuable real estate. It's the first line of your email. And what it's got to do is grab people by the eyeballs. It's got to show them this is something that they want to read. But what do we actually do most of the time? Well, in our first line, we often write something like, I hope you're well, or I hope this email finds you well. And it's bland and it's boring and it's generic. And it's not really going to make people say, oh, I've got to read this email before I do anything else. So we need to think about more creative, interesting openers to our emails. So, for example, I'll give you a couple of tips on openers. A way to grab people's attention at the beginning of your email is to make it about them and not about you. So a lot of small businesses might send out, if they were inviting you to a webinar or an event, they might write something like, we're delighted to invite you to our event. And it's all me, me, me. When in fact, what we want to do is flip that on its head and talk about our audience. So instead of that, instead of saying we would like to invite you, we could make it about them. We could say something like, if you're worried about email security, like a lot of our clients are, we've got just a thing for you. So we're starting with their wants and needs, not our own. It's a great tip. Second thing we can do with email openers is to make them personal. So if you know the person that you're writing to, think of something that might connect with them. You know, how was your birthday at the weekend? How did your meeting go last week? Did you survive the rainstorm? You know, we can even talk about the weather, but something, you know, was it beautiful on the South Coast? How was the holiday? Anything to create that personal connection with them, so it doesn't feel like a generic cut and paste email, because no one wants that. And of course, if you're writing to someone who is very direct and to the point, we'll know those people, don't we, who write very succinct emails. You can just get straight to the point. No, here's the proposal you asked for. You don't necessarily always need that soft opener. So that was your A, your start, your S, your start of your emails. And we're going to move on to the A of SAS. This is for action. Now, this is all about what we want people to do after they've read our email. So what is the action that we want them to take? And we tend to be quite bad at asking for what we want, in my experience. We often do, you know, particularly here in the UK, we get very British about it. And we might say, you know, being overly polite, oh, I hope if you're not too busy, then perhaps if you wouldn't mind, reviewing this proposal. But if you're too busy, then that's totally fine. Or we might go the other way and overload people with choice. So it might be something like, we're trying to get a meeting in someone's diary, and we end up saying something like, are you available for a Zoom meeting next week? Or would you prefer an in-person meeting? Or we could do a telephone call, or I could pop to your offices if it's not too much trouble. And we overload with choice. So we need to get to the point. We need to be more direct about what it is that we want people to do after they've read our emails. So we want to end with the one thing that we want them to do next. So don't bury it in the middle of your email. End your email with it and be very direct. Are you free for a meeting on Thursday afternoon at 2 p.m. or 4 p.m.? Then it's much easier for that person to act on what you want. So be direct, be much clearer about it. So my third point on my SAS acronym for you is around the subject line. Now, it sounds really obvious, doesn't it? If we want people to read our emails, they have to open them first. But in our sort of flurry of, productivity and trying to get emails out the door, we often forget this. So we tend to start with the subject line and we dash it off. Meeting request, update, for your information, yawn, yawn, yawn. They will send your audience to sleep. I guarantee it. If you think that you are competing with all these other emails in someone's inbox, they've got, hundreds and hundreds of emails. We've got to figure out, why should they choose yours to open? And that will be to do with the strength of your subject line. So let's ditch boring subject lines once and for all, and think about how we can make them more interesting and get people to rip them open. So curiosity is a great thing to harness with email subject lines, particularly if you're sending cold emails to people externally. So it could be something like, I heard that you were interested in ... Or it could be, were your ears burning the other day ... So something to get their juices flowing. They're getting curious. Using that ... can be very helpful. Or you might want to incentivize people to open the email. So, for example, if you were trying to persuade your clients to use a new system, And instead of sending something like, please update details on accounting system, you might want to say something like, get the information you need faster, or get a better service faster, or something that's going to be of interest to them, that very similar to the hook, the opener of your email, the start of it, what's in it for them. So giving them a benefit can be really helpful. So you can find out these tips and more in my book, Email Attraction, Get What You Want Every Time You Hit Send. There's lots more juicy information in there about how to write follow-up emails, the danger of emotional emails, got to be careful of those, how to ditch the sort of stiff and starchy language if we want to connect with people. So I think it's time to answer some of your questions. And I'm really excited to get into these. So who have we got up first? We've got Billy on Instagram DM. He is saying, how do you feel about using emojis in emails? I think they add personality, but I worry others may interpret them as unprofessional. Great question, Billy. Emojis are a divisive subject. They are the Marmite of emails. Some people love them, some people absolutely hate them. I would really think hard about your audience. So who are you writing to? Are they formal? Are they, perhaps a bit more traditional? Maybe they're, shouldn't really stereotype by generation, but I would say there's a little bit of a generational divide between older people who aren't perhaps so used to using emojis and younger people who are. So really think about the recipient of your email. I wouldn't give you a sort of blanket approach to emojis. Where I think they're very helpful is sometimes at clarifying our intent. So what do we really mean by something? And sometimes they can soften our approach. If you think, oh, I'm not sure someone will quite understand what I mean by that, a little smiley face to show that you're not annoyed with someone can be incredibly helpful. But think about your audience. That's a great question. So let's have a look at our next one. Mark on Instagram. He's saying, I've had feedback that often my emails can come off cold when I'm just trying to be direct. How do I add personality without being fake? Oh, it's a tricky one, isn't it? Quite often we can be warm and bubbly in real life. And we can say, hi, how are you? And, what have you been up to? And we get onto email and we write, I hope this email finds you well. Please find attached the aforementioned report. So we take on this sort of very formal business writing persona. And what we want to do is try to write how we speak. So Mark, here are a couple of tips for you on this. Firstly, sometimes you can record yourself. So say it out loud, your email. So what would you say to someone if they were in person? And you can try and use more of that language. It tends to be the words we use are quite stiff and starchy on email. So instead of using utilize, just use. Using contractions as well. So instead of it is, use it's. We are should be we're. That can make the tone of your emails much more informal. But in general, think about, does it sound like me? Or does it sound like, I've been abducted by aliens, by this sort of corporate robot machine who is writing my emails? Emails are an extension of our personal brand. So that it's like standing there in person with someone. So loosening up, thinking about the words that you use, trying to use more of your voice and add some warmth into it. I think that should help you. Let's have a look at who's next. So James on Facebook Messenger is saying, when working on campaigns, we often end up in massive chains with 20 odd people on them and several emails a day. It becomes hard to follow, but we also don't want to break it into smaller change, as that creates more work later updating people. Any advice on how to manage this? Oh, yes. when, you've got the scroll of emails and you're trying to find something, and you got it, it's like wading through War and Peace trying to find the bit that you need. I would say you need a new email chain when you significantly change the topic. So it might be related to a one campaign, but actually, if it's going to be a different aspect of it, then you will need to create a new chain with a new subject line, because actually, in the long run, that's going to be easier to it's going to be easier to find the information that you need if it's got the right title on it. So try and divide those up. Think about who really needs to be on all of these emails. Could you actually take some of it onto Slack, for example, or another platform, or a WhatsApp group? So perhaps before the campaign starts, think about who are the core people who really need to see everything. And then perhaps some of the peripheries go on different. You have one core email chain, and then you have a couple of peripheries, and maybe a Slack channel or another messaging app to mop up some of those little details. Because sometimes, you get really, really simple things that don't need everyone copied on the email to answer. Hope that helps, James. So, Oscar on Instagram. I often try to break down key info using bullet points in emails, but even then they can get a bit unruly. I love that, Oscar. What's the most effective way to use bullet points? It sounds like, Oscar, if your bullet points are getting too unruly, you're trying to put too much into your email. On average, I would say don't go above 80 words on an email. It's a lot less than you think. So if your bullet points are getting too massive, think about how else you could present that information. Maybe you need to attach a short Word document or a slide, or pick up the phone. If it's getting too long, we think that, if I can cram it all in one email, then it's going to be easier for the other person, rather than an attachment, or rather than a couple of different methods or two separate emails. But actually, we're kidding ourselves. And I wonder, Oscar, if that's the case for you. You're thinking, I've got to put it all into one email so it's easier for them. Try and split up the information. Put an executive summary in the email and add more detail in an attachment if people want to read that, or start with an executive summary and then put the bullet points underneath. But if you're going way, way over your 80-word limit, then you need to have a rethink. So next, Leah on Facebook Messenger. You mentioned only have one call to action. Yes. But what if you do need several things from the person you're emailing? Is there a way to deliver several CTAs, or do you think we should scrap and pick one at a time? How do we prioritize? Great question. I get asked this all the time. We as humans, we're not very good at taking in huge amounts of information at once. We're very conditioned to one thing at a time. So we can run the risk, if we ask for too many things at once, we might get none of them. Whereas if we ask for one thing, we'll get that one thing. So I would think about, potentially dividing stuff up into different emails if they're on different topics. If they're all on the same topics, number them into a list and in order that they need to be done. First, I need you to do this. Second, I need you to do this. Third, I need you to do this, and give them deadlines. Don't just say urgent, because urgent to one person might mean a week. Urgent to someone else might mean an hour. So wherever you can, keep it to one thing, and ask yourself, what is the most important point here? If I could only have one thing, what would it be? And actually, are some of these other things just subsections of it? When we get really ruthless, and as I was saying to Oscar about word count, when we get really ruthless, sometimes we can actually just get to clarity. We can think, do you know what? I'm not sure I needed all that information in the first place. So really try hard to keep it to one thing. If you have to, number your bullet points. Right, next question. Jeremy on Instagram DMs is saying, often marketing gets bundled along with PR as well. Any advice for writing a press release? Okay, we've gone slightly off piste here. What's the best way to engage journalists? So we're going slightly off piste, but I'll give you a quick bit of advice on here. You can use this same structure, the SAS, and actually the technique I use in the book is called the Heck hamburger technique, and it's hook, explanation, and call to action. And you can apply that to almost anything that you write, so not just emails. And it's about starting strong, then elaborating, and then giving someone a call to action. So I would say have a look at the book, have a look at the Heck hamburger technique, and that will help you with your press releases as well. Let's have a look. So Nick on Facebook Messenger. I'm thinking about doing some offers via emails, but worry they can come off cheap. My own experience of being offered 20% every week by the likes of Just Eat and Uber Eat has made me unsure. Any tips on how to get the balance right? With email marketing, I think there needs to be a balance, and it depends on your business and the type of business. But I would say, if we're constantly discounting, then it can feel like the product or service that we're offering doesn't have enough value. So actually, we don't necessarily always want offers as consumers. We want value, we want interest, we want a variety of information. So the brands that I think do well with offers are those that use them sparingly. So they feel like, oh, this is a special occasion. This is something that I'm not going to get for a while, so I better jump on it. And it's those brands who have maybe spent a little time before then inspiring me about their service or their product. So they might have, tempted me a little bit, and I'm in that mood to buy. I'm interested, but I'm perhaps thinking, oh, it might be a little bit expensive. And then when the offer comes, I'm primed and ready. So build it up like in a really good movie, where you've got the suspense building, the suspense is building, and then boom, suddenly it's time. So get the build up right to your offer, add value, whet their appetite, and then you can deliver your offer, and hopefully that will give you a better response to it. And Isabella on Twitter is saying, we've recently seen a spike in unsubscribes to our newsletter. Oh, horrible when that happens, isn't it? Drives you crazy. What data points should we be considering in order to figure out why this is happening? First of all, Isabella, don't panic. It happens to everyone, even the most amazing newsletters out there read by millions of people. You've got James Clear's weekly email that goes out. You've got Seth Godin's daily ones. They all get unsubscribes. So I think the thing is not to panic. You don't necessarily need to sort of throw the baby out with the bathwater. You need to just breathe in, breathe out. It's a horrible feeling. You put loads of effort into your email newsletter, but have a look and see, are there, have you changed the time of day? Have you changed frequency? Have you done anything differently recently? Have you switched up the content? Have a look at those. Were there particular emails that triggered unsubscribes? So I know quite often if people use swear words, that can turn a lot of people off, or certain profanities, or certain, topics that might be more political. Sometimes those can turn people off as well. Doesn't necessarily mean you shouldn't use them, but you can, you need to sort of be aware of that. Has your audience changed? Have their needs changed? Are you writing now about things that aren't quite so relevant to them anymore? So stay calm, do a deep dive, and you can ask your audience too, what do they want to hear from you? So maybe doing a kind of survey would be a good idea. And probably the final question now from Antonio on Twitter. He's asking, is there a balance between crafting an engaging and click-worthy subject line versus being clickbaity or misleading? How do you get this right? Oh, great question, Antonio. The problem with clickbait is not the title, it's what we get afterwards. It's that feeling of disappointment. So it's the promise and then the sort of crushing disappointment when we realize that, if you think about those articles online that you see, 20 celebrities, you won't believe what they look like now. And then you have to scroll through 30 adverts, and then you get one picture at the end of some celebrity that you've never even heard of. Maybe that's just me. So we need to, it's not so much about that headline, but it's what you're going to deliver afterwards. So if you're saying, I'm 10 tips to help you grow your business, make them good. If you're saying, shh, I've got a secret for you, give them something juicy. So don't disappoint. It's not really about, obviously we need to have that great headline. We want them to open it, but it's about what happens next. So over deliver on your promise, and then it won't feel like clickbait. Then it really does just feel like, oh, they've got my attention, and boy, I'm happy I've read that email. So I hope I've answered all your questions today. It's been really fun. The poll results are in. So we asked you how many hours a day you spend on email. This is interesting. Wonder what you were thinking. So 10% of you said 0 to 1 hours. 20% of you said 1 to 2 hours. And a whopping 70% of you answered 3+ hours. Now, I'm not surprised about this. The average white collar worker spends around 6 hours of their day on email. So I think I've got all the stats in the book, but I think that was around 2 hours on personal email and 4 hours on business email. So I'm not surprised. And what we really need to do here is think more mindfully about our emails instead of shooting off 20 emails in a morning and thinking, whoa, I've done brilliantly, and rushing through them all. If we just slow down and think a bit more deeply about what it is that we want, how do we craft emails that are easy to open, easy to read, then we can get a much, much better result from our emails. It's a bit like if you say, I'm going to tidy my desk, and you just sweep everything onto the floor beside you. It's still there. And it's the same when we rush through emails. We think that we've, got them out of our inbox, but they're just hanging around in the ether. They're still there. They're not necessarily going to create that next step that we really want and need. So slow down. Let's make the most of all of these hours that we spend on email. So, thank you all so much for tuning in today. If you want to get in contact, you can reach out to me via my website at kimarnold.co.uk, and you can find the link to the book in the notes here. So do take a look. Coming up on Ask the Expert on Monday is Ariona from Majors Accounts, a chartered accountant and digitalization expert. Tune in for business and accounting advice. And a reminder, if you need any more advice, join the official Intuit QuickBooks SMB community group on Facebook. Accountants and business experts are available 24/7. I've really enjoyed answering your questions this morning. Thank you, and have a great day.